Thanks for being here. Welcome to Tech Week and to the Mux office. I'm John. I'm co-founder and CEO of Mux. So welcome to our brand new space. This is the first event we've hosted up here. Hope you like it. And welcome to Michael Greenwich, who's a friend, founder of WorkOS. And there is no fire. If you came for a fireside chat and you're upset that we don't have actual fire, feel free to leave. Otherwise, we'll have a nice chat.
It's a nice plan. I mean, so I'm the founder of WorkOS. For those of you that don't know WorkOS, we help software companies with enterprise features in their app. So it's kind of like Stripe for enterprise stuff. So if you're building the next, Slack or Dropbox or whatever, you take it up market, go sell it to bigger customers. They'll ask for things like single sign-on. If you've ever heard of SAML authentication. User provisioning, like automated stuff around roles and permissions, logging, encryption, essentially all the stuff. If you think about the pricing page for SaaS, you have like free, pro, and then like enterprise. All those things we provide as a service, as an API, so you don't have to build them. And we've been doing this for almost 7 years. It's kind of an eon in startup time. But we power so many products today. Like we have over 1,000 customers, including folks like Vercel and Webflow and Carta, kind of that era of SaaS. And then in the last year or two, companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, Cursor is powered by WorkOS. Mux is now with our MCP stuff, yes. Perplexity, a bunch of those folks. So we are not selling AI product ourselves. We're not selling foundational models, but we're kind of powering this AI wave today. Yeah. We're about 90 people as a company, so kind of roughly the same size as Mux. And our office is literally like probably 200 feet that way down the street. So excited to be here.
Cool. Who here loves SAML? Raise your hand.
No one does.
How did you get into building this particular problem space?
Yeah, as a child, I was drawn to enterprise SaaS. Absolutely not, of course. No one is. So my story goes back a few years. When I was in college, I actually dropped out of school for 6 months and worked at Dropbox, back when Dropbox was like 30, 40 people. And it got me convinced I wanted to do startups, and so I went back to school and got my CS degree. And I started a startup called Nihilus, which is still around. And we actually started it to build an email product, an email client. So if you use something like Superhuman today, it's kind of like a previous generation of that. It's a desktop-based tool, pre-Slack. And the idea was to change the way that people communicate. So what kind of Dropbox had done for collaboration was very inspired there. I wanted to do that for communication, for messaging. So raise all this money from VCs, hire a bunch of friends, obsess around the design of this product. And we got a ton of users. We launch it, people love it. It's like open source, you could build stuff on top of it. It's very cool. I tried to go sell it into companies. So we had users at all these different organizations, like literally everyone, like from Apple to like NASA to Uber. We had 100 people at Uber using it. And I went into that company and said, okay, I'm Michael from Nihilus. I'd love to sell you like a team license. Your whole team is using it. And it was the first time I ever talked to someone in IT. I didn't even know what IT meant. I honestly don't even really know what it means today. It's essentially all the security stuff. And they said, well, if we're actually going to buy this, there's a ton of other stuff we need because email touches pretty sensitive data, and they'd actually have to manage and roll it out at scale, across their organization, all the security stuff. And not having these features actually like killed our growth of that product from a commercial perspective. They said, we can't buy it at all. In fact, we have to shut it down. And so that product, we actually shuttered it. We fully open sourced it and shut it down. Nihilus is still around. You can kind of think of the company as like taking the full email thing and chopping off the email client. We just sold the mail synchronization technology. So it's used to power a bunch of other products, which is how I fell in love with APIs and developer tools. But that product essentially failed because we couldn't grow up market and sell it to enterprise. And so that's the origin of WorkOS. We're trying to do that for all these other companies. And funny enough, Superhuman's actually one of our customers now. So it's kind of like full circle and help them scale.
Cool. Well, we're here at least nominally to talk about MCP.
I wore my MCP shirt.
That's
Yeah.
we're going to talk about the MCP shirt.
Ask me later where you can get one.
Yeah, and you hosted an MCP conference recently.
Yeah, I've been sort of obsessed with MCP since like probably January, maybe December around Christmas, and for initially no reason other than just like my own curiosity as an engineer and developer and kind of looking at like the way the AI space is going. We've done 2 events here in the city called MCP Night, where they've been attended by like hundreds of developers. It's kind of this like super meetup theatrical event, and we made T-shirts for them.
When did you first hear the letters MCP put together with the current meaning of those letters?
I think I saw it on my favorite online cesspool, Hacker News, which I semi-religiously read. And I remember there was like some comment that was like, it was like extremely dismissive of MCP. It was like, this thing is like, has a bunch of security holes and doesn't really do anything yet. And it's just a disaster. But then the comment at the end was like, I'm sure it'll be totally fine. You know, it's like great things kind of start off that way. So I had seen it there, and early on in the development of it, it only worked locally. Like you could just connect to like Anthropic built it for it to talk like to your Mac locally. So there's very few things that it could actually do. They're very clunky to use and kind of set up, but the power of being able to like extend the context of your LLM session was just totally intoxicating. It was like, this is such a cool thing. And so I just kind of like got rabbit holed by it and started reading more and more.
I'm guessing everyone knows what MCP is and stands for, what MCP server is. But maybe like, what's like the pattern behind MCP in your mind? Like, what is it besides like the specific implementation? Like, what is it actually doing for software?
Yeah, does anyone not know what MCP is? I'm sure to give. You don't? Okay. So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. It's essentially a way to connect your LLM thing, your Claude or your ChatGPT, to another system. Could be a service, could be a local system. So you can have it, you know, on your Mac, like talk to your address book. You could have it talk to Yelp or something like that. And the magic is that it allows you to incorporate context into the LLM, information, so it can make decisions, and also tools, so you can augment it with the ability to go do stuff out in the world. And that could be anything from checking the weather, which is a very classic kind of MCP demo, you know, using a remote service and checking that, to connecting to your production database and running queries or migrations for you, and kind of everything in between. So it's really, really powerful extension point. You kind of think about like these LLM-based products, they're really smart in what they can do, but they're really stuck in their context. You ever seen that thing where you ask ChatGPT something and it's like, my training data is only valid up until, you know, February of 2025 or something like that. MCP allows you to like essentially extend that and give more recent information into it.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, we built and launched through a couple of iterations MCP servers for our 2 products, Mux Video and Mux Data, a few months ago. Made some missteps, I think, in the first builds. Got it maybe better and right in the later builds. What was your journey building these for WorkOS?
Well, I had built a bunch of little demo things, and I spent a lot of time talking to developers that were building things in the MCP ecosystem, because I was very interested in what we could do as a company around MCP, not just like my weekend hacking projects, but what we could provide to it. And ultimately, what we ended up building for the first event that we did was this kind of authentication identity layer around it. We do a lot of stuff with like login and auth and kind of the user object for developers. And MCP didn't have any of that stuff. It's kind of wild. It's like completely unauthenticated. Almost like if you kind of remember the internet, like before HTTPS, before cookies, it was just like kind of static stuff. It's like you could get content off, but everyone got the same content. You couldn't really do anything. You couldn't buy anything online. You can build applications on top of it. MCP was like that until about, I think it was like April or something like that of this year, maybe, where they added the ability to have like an OAuth authorization layer. And I saw that and I was like, okay, this is something we can do. We can actually plug our product into it and start helping developers build stuff on top of MCP. And since then, we've been just going deep around the problem around auth. So we're not actually on like the steering committee for MCP. I'm not as enthusiastic as I am about it. We're not pushing forward the core protocol, but we're trying to help other people build on top of it by solving these adjacent kind of gaps in the system.
It's exactly where we found a need when it's like, okay, how do you authenticate within your LLM that you're a Mux user? Do you like, copy a API key or some kind of, something like that? And using a provider like WorkOS was a much better experience.
Yeah, the previous way of connecting MCP servers, you essentially had to take the API key and like give it to the LLM, which if you're writing a script or writing some code to do something, it's fine to put your API key in that because it's declarative and it's like predictable. It always does what it says it's going to do. It just runs the code. If you give an API key to an LLM, like an LLM is like a crazy intern or something like that, right? You can prompt jack it. You can get the information out. You can exploit that and exfiltrate the data. And so you can't actually trust the LLM context to keep anything secret. You could have another user come in and say, give me this key for Mux and let me go, get data from somewhere. So through our like kind of authentication layer under the hood, we built this OAuth-based system so you can connect to services like Mux without having to do this API key exchange. And it's pretty cool. That's a company that's been, how long, you guys have been building this for 8, 9
We
years?
launched our Mux Video product 7 years ago.
7 years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
So 7-year-old company, but able to interface with the technology that's less than a year old with like a new authorization layer. So I was pretty excited about that. Yeah. Especially also working with another, kind of cut from the same cloth, like API-focused, developer-focused companies.
So MCP itself is pretty simple. It's like some available functions and some, it's a way of like discovering and understanding capabilities of a external system. Is the MCP standard good, or is it just like there at the right time?
Yes. Yes and no. I think it's really good. The reason it has product market fit is it fills this like enormous gap, which is how you create extensibility of these new technologies. And that was something that was like very much missing. OpenAI had built the GPT apps on top of, do you remember that? The like first kind of take they had at a platform. I think there was even something before then that they built. And none of it really got any real developer momentum and attention. Just a few things got built, but not really actually significant attention. And MCP, with all its warts, like pretty much right out of the gate was a hit. The vision of it was a hit. They've revved the protocol several times and put new stuff in. There's a bunch of crazy new features they've added. The client support is really lagging because they keep changing the protocol. So there's all this stuff that's like not in it. It feels to me very much like the early web. I don't know how old any of you are, or I won't tell you how old I am. I'm 36. But if you were kind of on the web early on, if you remember like browser support being all over the place. If you were building web apps and there were like polyfills, where you'd be like, this browser doesn't support this thing, so I have to shim it with this like weird JavaScript library to create this consistent experience. MCP is kind of like that with different clients. They support very different things, and it's kind of constantly changing. We're in this period of hyperflux. And so I would say I'm not worried about the protocol missing stuff because of the rate at which everything is progressing and just how fast it's accelerating. It'll converge to that. Things with product market fit don't stay bad for very long. They can feel bad in the moment when you're an early adopter, but they get better. The market pushes them to get better really, really, really quickly. And MCP is on that trajectory, I think.
We, in ours, I think in a pretty quick follow-up of our MCP servers, got rid of our delete function. So with our API, you can delete videos. You could delete all your videos. Giving that capability to an LLM felt like maybe something to be cautious about. Have you seen any horror stories with these kind of things? And what would safeguards look like for these kind of applications?
One of my favorite quotes, I can't remember exactly who said it, but it's paraphrasing, to err is human, but to screw up at 10,000 times per second, you need a computer. And I think this is kind of the same thing for like agents or MCP systems. If you give them these capabilities, they can be tricked into doing bad stuff or run off the rails, or even not tricked. They'll just do it. You're like, fix this bug, and it's like, great, I deleted all the code. There's no more bugs. I'm like, well, that's like technically accurate.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
Yeah, it's not helpful. And so putting up guardrails around MCP is a big thing. And when I say MCP here also, I just mean generally like agentic behavior instead of applications where you're using the LLM or the AI-based tools to make decisions and plan stuff. So a very common one is people will have like only a read-only system for MCP. And then to actually do mutations or changes, you have to go through a different system. There's a bunch of stuff missing in MCP today to be able to do like approval flows or pending actions, or if you want the ability to escalate to a human, have a human in the loop. Doesn't fully exist in MCP today. There's ways you can kind of hack around it. But yeah, it's a huge risk. Jason Lemkin, who's this guy on Twitter, I mean, he's more than that, but the purposes of this, he was vibe coding a product on Replit, and it spent all this time building all this stuff, and like hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars on Replit, kind of vibe coding this whole application, and Replit like deleted his production database completely. The agent did that, and the Replit team like scrambled to like figure this out and put guardrails in. He was very public about it, but I think even these systems were sort of learning it through trial and error.
I remember the story. It didn't just delete the production database; it lied about
Yeah.
not having deleted the production database.
Yeah.
And
Like
it
an
took,
intern, right?
Multiple,
You know?
yeah. Like a malicious intern almost.
Right. And that's kind of the crazy thing is like these things are so powerful and so capable, but then they break in these ways that can be catastrophic, And so how do you balance that power with the risk associated with it? There's a whole class of startups emerging to try to solve this problem. We're working on some stuff around like tool authorization or permissions that we hope will help with this, but ultimately I think it's just kind of a new thing that we're all going to have to figure out how to deal with, because building products without leveraging these AI kind of technologies is just going to be, you're not going to win in the market because somebody else will add them and it'll make their product so much better. So it's maybe it's something kind of like interpreted languages or like memory management. There's been eras in time where people had to like change the way that they build software for this. This is yet another one.
So you're actually working on safety mechanisms around this today. Is that right?
Yeah, we're trying to help developers. So we serve developers. So WorkOS, like our customers, like people building stuff, engineers, software teams, companies that create software. And we want them to be able to use these technologies faster and do it in a way that's safe inside of the product. So we do a lot of that security stuff through authentication and permissions and kind of access control and approval flows, around stuff is kind of adjacent to that. So we already have some products we built there, some services, but I think with MCP it's even more interesting. Being able to give an LLM a specific set of tools, but then dynamically change that based on what it's trying to do, or maybe give it a tool that it can like propose using, but doesn't have the follow through. It has to get escalated. These are new primitives that I think are kind of building blocks we need to create for software engineers. So we're very excited to introduce some of those things.
Cool.
Coming to an API near you someday soon. Yeah.
The MCP protocol, I guess that's redundant. The MC protocol is not the only way of connecting one software application to an LLM. When is it the right tool to pull out, and when is it the wrong tool to pull out?
It's a good question. It seems like most people building agentic products today are actually not using MCP. So if you're building something like a customer support bot, there's a lot of frameworks like LangChain or Crew AI or these things that you can use to create those like multi-turn or multi-step workflows, where essentially you can create tools, which is just kind of like functions essentially, and then expose those tools to the LLMs through these frameworks. And that's predominantly like the way companies like Sierra or Decagon or these very successful companies are doing it. They're not using MCP. However, I actually suspect it'll move towards MCP over time because it is this like universal connector. It's this like universal adapter. And just the momentum effect and the power of that is enormous. Like I have a MacBook. I never charge it with the Apple plug. I always use the USB-C thing. I don't even know where that plug is. The specialized, unique one just for that specific thing doesn't have utility for me over something that's, generic and I can just keep everywhere. And I think that's a thing with kind of platforms and new technologies that fighting that wave, it's inevitable. It might take, a year or something, or 2 years or 2 months, but it's inevitable. And so one of the things that I think is under discussed right now is actually MCP being used for like agent to agent communication or inter-agent like coordination. If you're building one of these agentic systems using MCP as the kind of lingua franca of those systems connecting. People are just starting to experiment with it today. And like I said, a lot of the MCP, the tooling isn't really good yet. It's just like hard to work on. It's like there's we have so much great tooling for working with like APIs and REST systems and building mobile apps. And there's like the Chrome developer tools, which is like insanely good. There's so much stuff in there. MCP has none of that. It's really hard to. It's like print statements maybe, it's like print statements with the like insane intern trying to work with that. So. Even evals, if you're familiar with that, like that's a thing that's still kind of hotly debated, like how you should build evals into your AI system or not. So I think it'll just kind of take time, but I'm very bullish on MCP beyond the party trick demo of like adding it to Claude and having some context there. It's great. I think that'll probably be the first way that people use it. But I think that's just the beginning of where it'll go.
I'm curious, like about this, how does the user use it? Like if you guys have added a Lux MCP offering, I think right now it's like you got to go to Claude Code, you got to add this thing. Maybe it's
a huge pain in the ass.
Yeah.
To put it mildly, yeah.
Like I guess.
Like how do you actually get it into Claude?
Well, where maybe today it sucks, but like where you guys see in the future how it's surfaced and made available and like it's also a thing that's not some like this like JSON coding.
Yeah. So the ergonomics around MCP as a user of it are pretty rough. If you're a developer engineer, you can muck your way around with it. And many of the top MCP servers that are actually like commonly in use are for developer tools because engineers can figure it out, and they naturally build stuff for themselves. Cursor has a really nice little add to cursor button, which has a specific protocol that can add it to their system. Okay. But that's like relatively new as well.
The Claude UI has gotten a lot better.
The Claude UI has gotten better. It used to be you had to be an admin in Claude to add any MCP system at all to allow your team to use it. So I think these companies are being quite cautious around making it easy for people to add them. Well aware of the previous security incidents that came from like quick OAuth consent to sensitive data. So if you remember like in years past, there's some app that's like, we'll like help you get money back on your flights that were delayed. Connect your Gmail account. And then they like steal all your data. Like that thing can exist for MCP, except it's even worse, right? Because in order for this stuff to be valuable, you want to connect all your company data. Let's connect your Salesforce and your HubSpot and your yada, all this stuff. So I think rightfully so, they're being cautious with it. Claude has supported MCP for a while. It's missing a bunch of features in the protocol. Weirdly, VS Code has the best support of MCP today.
This one, yeah.
Yeah, it's really, and a lot of the experimental stuff they've added into it, like the MCP UI, kind of bleeding edge stuff. The team there is doing pretty amazing work to keep pushing it. The most popular consumer product in the AI space, by far, is ChatGPT. It's like not even close, and that only added MCP support in the business enterprise plan like 2 months ago-ish, 3 months ago. And literally yesterday, it landed in the OpenAI's Dev Day. They were talking about it being the protocol for building these new agent apps, AgentKit on top of their platform. So the ergonomics, I would say, are pretty bad around setting it up. Don't be surprised if it's pretty gnarly to get it configured, but I think that's just it hasn't landed kind of in mainline. We haven't really had like the iPhone moment, the easy distribution around the iPhone App Store yet. But OpenAI is choosing to use MCP for their agent protocol. They're not building a different protocol or using something else. They're converging on it. So again, it's just like, it's all moving in that way, and I don't really see anything that's going to stop it at this point.
Tell me if I'm right about this. Today, an LLM might have two internal tools at its disposal that it can choose to use. MCP is like or you can add an MCP. How long until these models go out and choose an external MCP that you don't even know they're using in order to fulfill some need?
It's a great question. So in terms of tools, right now, if you add like, I think it's like more than 10-ish tools to like LLM, they kind of freak out. They don't really know how to use them. And I haven't confirmed this, but I've kind of chatted with a few people about it. I suspect that the reason why is these foundational models haven't really been refined for tool calling yet. It's not a primary mechanism. They're more refined for reasoning, multi-step thinking, deep research, it's just fantastic if you use that, but really not for like external tool calling. The combination and a sort of composition of these external systems and tools together. So that's like the first thing. Right now, like I had this experience where I was like building something in Claude Code, which is like super fun, pure prompting, and I connected the Supabase MCP server, the Vercel MCP server, Context 7, which is kind of a Docs MCP server to all this stuff. And I had to keep reminding it to use the Vercel MCP server. It would like forget about this. And I'd be like, no, come on, man. Like, we already talked about this. Like, use that, please. So I think part of it is like the models aren't there. It's not the protocol necessarily.
Yeah.
In terms of suggesting like, hey, go use this MCP server, this literally happened with the OpenAI Dev Day thing yesterday, but I saw this little demo video that was like, it kind of popped up a thing like, I can go use Spotify for this, or like connect your Spotify. And I think that's a very natural thing. Like, kind of like in Slack, have you ever posted a link to something? It's like you post a link to like Calendly, and it's like, you should install the Calendly app, or you go to Yelp on your phone and the top bar is like, go install Yelp. Totally makes sense to do that, and for OpenAI to have sort of an app store-like experience. They've hired a bunch of very smart people recently that have experience building application platforms, so
Yeah.
I bet by the end of the year we see that in that tool. Yeah.
Let me ask one more. We'll do some Q&A and chat again maybe after that. I have a hot take. Tell me if this is true, false, or not even hot, because it's like whatever. A lot of consumer apps are going to no longer be used as consumer websites or apps in the future because they'll be used natively within the foundation model. So there are some things I don't really want to log into my airline to find my flight time. I just want to know my flight time.
Okay.
Or I don't really want to do whatever, check the weather, get maps, outside of that context. Hot take, consumer web becomes a specialized thing for things that actually need good user interfaces and things that don't actually happen within OpenAI, ChatGPT or whatever.
I think it's generally like kind of directionally right, but I think when people think about talk about these technology transitions, they sort of imply that it's going to go to zero on the other side. It's like when TV came out, which I'm not that old, but people were like
1940.
Yeah.
Or I don't know when. Yeah.
People were like, no one's going to listen to radio anymore. Radio's dead. And like, obviously that's not the case. Like everyone pretty much has a radio in their car. And radio has evolved on top of the new medium, right? Like podcasts, audio podcasts are a thing. Same thing with like mobile apps. People were like, everyone's only going to do things through mobile apps. No, like the web is dead. And it's like kind of true, what's the joke is like, you can tell a millennial because they use the laptop to buy flights and not their phone or something like that for serious action. I don't think that's true. Yeah, I buy flights on my phone all the time. But it's still there, right? It's still there. It just gets progressively easier and more convenient. And I suspect like MCP is one of those things. Certainly something I've read is about the amount of traffic decline that a lot of major websites are seeing just because of the Google experience, where that like top summary is answering questions that people aren't going to web. Like it's been a huge decline. To the point, I think that was like one of the primary things cited in the antitrust case that was recently dismissed. So I think it's totally going to be the case where people go to ChatGPT or pick your AI-based product for a lot of these actions. But I don't think it'll go to zero, elsewhere.
Yeah.
It'll still be compelling. Yeah.
Makes sense.
And then probably eventually it'll be voice. I don't have any specialized knowledge around this, but kind of the next thing is like, if you can get the text chat really good, why can't you just talk to something and have that true magical assistant, the person in your ear? So MCP might be a stepping stone that gets us to that. It's the bridge into all the existing services so that truly like the voice, layer can be fully powerful.
Cool. Questions?
How far do you think that we need to actually create these servers versus these being generated by these coding models with the capabilities that are coming out?
Create what?
A lot of these coding models are able to generate almost what you say scaffold, the standard app, an MCP server almost, or an MCP client feels like a standardized app which you can plug on top of an existing application. Especially if you have open APIs, it seems like a no-brainer that you just go ahead, ask these coding models, and you have the whole thing scaffolded up instead of having to write anything at all. How far do you think we are away from that, or do you think that's happening already?
It's a great question. Much like the Turing test kind of just came and went, we just like blew through it unceremoniously. I think also there's been a transition this year that's actually occurred earlier this year, where we went from code generation requiring a human to be in the loop. And you can see it by the form factor. So Cursor as a product, the tab completion, you are still part of the machine, right? You're doing stuff, you're writing code. It's this kind of like super assistant. And that was really the 3.5 Sonnet model from Claude, right? And the jump to 3.7, for me at least, was that it could really one-shot whole experiences, or it could really like reason and build stuff and kind of multiple steps. And I think that's quite profound. That transition occurred also quite unceremoniously, but you can see the transition in the products that people use. So after that, it's what enabled not just Claude Code, but things like Lovable, right? Where you're not looking at the code really at all. I think that's just going to continue. Like 4.5 is really good also at doing this stuff, one-shotting this. And I've heard people use the term disposable software, which I kind of love.
For me, actually, yesterday's demo with the Codex,
Yes.
that was also pretty eye-opening in terms of where, if you're doing a demo, if you have to write code, it usually takes time, so most people kind of pre-write the code and they just show when they're doing it. But the guy was speaking in as to what he wanted to do, and Codex would go ahead and then actually write the code for it.
Right.
Then deploy the code back in, and then the whole application would run. So it feels like we are generating software by talking to the application, and that agent's going ahead and generating a bunch of these usable software in some sense.
Yeah.
Of course, it's demoware, and you could say that, hey, it doesn't work with a bunch of these things, but how far do you think before it actually gets into production?
Are you asking for building an MCP
For
implementation,
building
or
this
just
whole-
building an application as a whole?
Whole applications, I think, would still take a lot of time because you still need a lot of context, but at least with these MCP servers or MCP clients, it seems more standardized. So could you just talk to Claude Code? Or
We built ours off of an open API spec, and Justin in the back can probably fill me in with much better detail here. But I think we maybe hand rolled one. Then we just did like a one shot from open API spec that was actually pretty good, but it wasn't quite there. And then the models got better, and then it was there.
Yeah.
And we've done things on top of it since then. But
It's relatively straightforward to take like an open API spec and have it transform into some type of MCP representation. One of the major downsides of that is the right way to structure like MCP tools is not just like your API resources. It's just a different kind of modality. It's kind of like taking your desktop app and putting it on a phone. Just like doesn't really work. And so I think we're going to see a lot of people work to adapt that over time.
could you speak maybe a little bit to what that adaptation looks like? Because I mean, I think to some extent there's some merit out there that hey, these models would probably need to understand your APIs differently than probably another application would do, and hence we had created the specialized APIs of sorts.
Yeah.
So, like, what have you seen out there?
Yeah, I'll give you just kind of a way to think about it as an example. So when you define like REST APIs, which is normal objects that are being returned, you're sort of giving the developer the ability to like understand semantically how those can get composed together to build some type of application experience, right? There's a lot of cognition going in there, and like LLMs today aren't like that smart. They get sort of confused. Many of them are better at using something like GraphQL because it's kind of a one-shot for the whole object experience. It just fits better for how attention works inside of LLMs. So if you're building an MCP server, instead of having a few different tool calls and different resources that have to be represented together, people just create like one tool for an action. But then you might have like 500 actions that can all be exposed. And if you have enough context, the LLM can figure that out. So all this is to say, like, it's very dependent on the models as well. So a lot of the stuff, like, it doesn't work, and then you just like blink, and it totally works. Like I was at this event last week, and Brad Lightcap is the COO of OpenAI was there, and I asked him this question. I was pretty much like, what is safe to build? I was like, what are the things that I'm not going to get completely smoked by the models getting better? And he essentially said nothing is safe. He's like, anything the models are not good at doing today, you should just assume that they're going to get really, really good at doing. And so just find ways, interesting places to carve around them. But I think for tool use and MCP, that's one of the reasons why if there's a criticism that like, I connected this MCP server and it didn't do much, or wasn't that good at like thinking or planning, I'm like, that's an engineering problem, not a physics problem.
My question, Mike, was like, you had this company that you created before WorkOS.
Yeah.
I'm building agentic AIs for DevOps happiness. It's called DevOpiness.com. It's live, 700 users, etc. So I never seen a happy mate doing DevOps and like, oh, I love this, man. I love great service, man. You'll create Terraform code. So I want to fix that problem. So my question for you would be, what was the main difference you learned from your previous startup selling to enterprise SaaS, and then when you start building developer tools, selling to developers or developer teams? I'm feeling it's very different. I've been in the past in the other experience. What can you share about the different perspective you have as a
Goodness, that's a huge question. There are so many things. I think developers want to adopt products in a different way. You need to have those like kind of easy self-serve experience. They often want to pay for it, self-serve as well. So if you're selling traditional enterprise SaaS, they'll want to do like a contract. They'll want to talk to you. Developers don't want to talk to you. Like we have companies paying us hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that are like, no, I don't want to talk to you. Just put it on the credit card.
Pay customer, I try to a customer's coming on to.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things like this, and I think it impacts how you build up your, we were just talking about it earlier, literally, your sales team, how you think about marketing, how you think about pricing. It's actually quite different, yeah.
I'd say developers don't want to be sold to you. Developers want to be helped.
Yeah.
And if you're helping them, they'll talk to you. If you're selling them, they don't want to talk to you.
If you ever see that,
But helping can be a way of obviously selling.
if you ever see that old movie, Glengarry Glen Ross, where he's like, always be closing, ABC, we have this thing we say internally, always be helping.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Did you have that challenge in the early days of WorkOS, and then you made some change that was like the turning point that, okay, now I'm communicating the message across in the proper way? Do you remember something like that?
There wasn't like one specific time. Yeah, I think that we changed it.
You're next, yeah.
I'm a non-technical founder, so my question might, I don't have the deep understanding of how it works, but in terms of the adoption curve, how long do you think it will take for the servers to catch up to, say, API adoption? And my second question is more, can API coexist with MCP servers, or are they complementary?
Yeah, exponentials are crazy. It's very hard to understand exponentials.
You're saying MCP versus direct API
Just,
for
yeah, like when it comes to,
being used by a model or just being used period in the market?
so when it comes to adoption, meaning like if you're a developer, you're making the choice providing both API and MCP servers. When does it become like just common sense to do both?
I see. That's an excellent question, I think.
I mean,
yeah.
Would there ever be a point where where MCP kind of replaces API?
Great question. They're sort of like different things. Like this is why the whole like convert from one to the other thing is a little bit blurry. Funny enough, both Vercel and Cloudflare released something in the last few weeks that actually takes an MCP tools and like turns it into like declarative APIs you can call to make it, yeah, it's like, but it allows you to make the tool calling experience sort of more predictable, which is really helpful if you're building these like multi-step, agent systems using Crew or LangChain or something. So a lot of people are experimenting and building very interesting kind of weird stuff out there. I think APIs will always be around. Like just structured, predictable endpoints that give you data is just like how machines communicate. And not everything necessarily will go through MCP, but it is a different beast. So just as an example, with an API, you version it when you want to change it. So anytime you need to make a change, you don't know the clients that are connecting, so you have to keep the old version and put a new version on and support both. Sometimes forever. Like Stripe still supports version 1 of their API from like 2010 or something, right? 15 years. Because they have devices connected to it, like hardware, that's not going to get software updates. With MCP, every time the LLM connects to it, it advertises the tools it has available in the prompt. You don't need to version it. Now, like the person trying to use it might be like, oh, that tool is gone that I used to use, or it's a little bit different, but because of the model unpredictability and the different model capabilities as well, the behavior is also like non-deterministic. You could even have the case where every person that connects to your MCP server gets a different experience. They get different tools, depending on who they are or what they're trying to do or what you know about them. So just that as a pattern, the difference between like APIs that are very structured, carved in stone versus MCP, which is like different every day of the week, is so fundamentally different that I don't think that one will eat the other. And I think that's why we're seeing so much momentum around MCP versus people just using APIs for it. It serves a different need. It fills a different gap in the market. Yeah.
John, how strong has the adoption of your MCP server been, and what are your users using it for?
It's been okay. It's not like most of our customers use it. Still, I think it's sort of a bleeding edge thing, I'd say. So we have kind of two main surface areas of our product suite. One is video analytics. Users use MCP there to either just directly like chat with their data, like who's watching what video, what's happening in my platform, how is performance right now in whatever, in Poland or something, or they build agentic workflows around it. So you might want an agentic workflow that is, imagine there's a production incident and you want to kick off like a root cause analysis, using an agentic workflow, using our data, pop it in Slack. There's companies doing things like that, So that's sort of one set for the analytics side. For the Mux video side, I think it's probably mostly used for exploration now. I don't know of big production uses of our MCP on Mux video. Maybe folks in the back do. But some of the cool demos that we are doing or customers are playing with are like content moderation, like pull in frames from a video, tell me summarization, tell me what's happening in the video, creating chapters, things like that. It's just like you have these API-ish capabilities, and now you have like the ability to think about them. It's just a lot of really interesting things. But
I think the app SDK might also affect that because that allows now embedded experiences.
Oh yeah, give it a week. It's
yeah.
like this is what's crazy about this, how fast it is. Like, we like I meant to text you. We like prepped for this meeting or this event, and then literally like on the train over here, I was like, oh shit, there's so much new stuff.
Yeah. Kyle has been a user.
I'm a faithful Mux MCP user. I built applications for Paramount Plus.
That's awesome.
So we're trying to really explore, on my team, resource constraint, company going through transition. You hear Oracle, and so internally we're trying to push the boundaries. To answer your question, we have found some really useful cases around letting it kind of go wild on the data. and then giving that to a human to say, look at what this found. And then kind of you're learning, and as you go, it becomes a self-discovery tool, and you're finding things like emails, if you see this error code, and then you have a human interaction with that tool. And so what I'm seeing is, I'm building code with 2 agents working together fully end-to-end apps. I've got an app right now that we're trying to look at replacing and archiving footage. So I'm using MCP to pull in analytics, make video, analyze what's going on in our live stream data with the dev tools that's running at the same time. It's happened and all evolved in like the last 90 days, but it feels super futuristic. And when he talks about like you get an adrenaline like flow through it from the creation and the benefits, but there's a cost drawback. So as you get more innovative, I'll just say the things you have to balance is cost. And so things that are like moving full speed ahead, you can feel 18 months in advance, but can you really run that every day? That's when I'm kind of stuck right now. It's at scale, like looking at thousands or millions of users and trying to find a needle in a haystack is how much you want to spend. Because a person can find that needle if you train them. So that's where I'm finding like this is very interesting. And this is like a great futuristic, path forward, and it's good to see companies like this. You have to spend money to get there. So.
I think there's a lot of people in this exact state that are experimenting and innovating in teams within larger organizations. And because it's such a new technology, you can't kind of go out and be prescriptive and say, like, this is how you should use it. Like, the teams and the organizations need to figure it out for themselves.
That's one of the superpowers of building dev tools,
Right.
is you kind of don't know, you don't have to know how people are going to use it. If you give them really good primitives and you document it well and you give them this functionality, they can build things you wouldn't expect. Other questions? Yeah.
So my question is, OpenAI just released apps in the ChatGPT, and Anthropic also, they're going to release the official MCP registry. So do they want to build their own like App Store version of MCP Store? In that case, what do you think, what's the value of MCP Marketplace?
I can't speak to either because I don't know. They're very secretive. I try to get something out of them, and they're very buttoned up and they're good at their jobs. The MCP registry I know that Anthropic has worked on is generalized. It's not Anthropic specific. Anthropic has done a really fantastic job taking the MCP governance and really externalizing it from like Anthropic as a company. There are many other people that are working on it, people from, from Microsoft and other companies also, and Cursor and other clients. And so the registry, as I understand it, is really just a place to list MCP servers. It's not even really a good mechanism for finding MCP servers that are like legit. There's a whole security thing around it, like don't install a bad MCP server so you can like steal all your context and data. A lot of active area there of work. In terms of the stuff that OpenAI announced yesterday around the apps for ChatGPT, I have no idea. Yeah, they're clearly extremely ambitious and expanding dramatically and have, and have one of the, dominant products, like the dominant product in this area to launch it. So I suspect that they're going big, but we'll see. It's very, very encouraging to me that they decided to adopt MCP as the underlying protocol for this stuff. That was not a certainty. If you went back like a few months, they had said that they supported it. They were sort of like half in, half out. It only supported part of it. It wasn't clear how you would set it up. So I think it's a step in the right direction.
A following up question. So what do you think of the MCP user experience will be like? Will it be agent automatically find and match an MCP server when user put in the prompt? Or users have to go to the marketplace and find the MCP they want and then connect to the agent that they use?
Well, if you're bringing your own personal account into it, there needs to be some type of authentication or association. Right now, ChatGPT has this for like connecting your Google Drive, but that's actually not going through MCP. That's like a direct integration that they built, or Box, or these other services. So I think there will be some way to connect your Mux account into ChatGPT through their platform. And it would totally make sense for there to be like a recommendation. I think like, who remembers Clippy? Yeah. It's like, hey, it looks like you're trying to transcode a video. Maybe we should connect Mux with it. And if you don't have an account, I'll connect over MCP and register a free one and use a free trial and use that as a tool. So that kind of thing totally makes sense to me in terms of automation. But what I just described is like a pretty easy to understand and like compelling workflow. The devil's in the details. There's so much complexity that needs to work under the hood to make that kind of stuff line up. It's kind of like I feel like printers just finally work now.
Did you? Have you used it in a while?
Printed from my phone to a printer like last week, and I could not. I was like, finally, in 2025, year of our Lord, like I can actually do this. And so sometimes things are just like, they shouldn't be complicated, but they are due to this like massive coordination overhead and fragmentation. I don't think it'll be that bad, but a lot of people expected with MCP, like by now, it would like completely have changed the world and we're not gonna use websites anymore and yada, yada, and all this stuff. And I think people significantly overestimate the short timeline, but underestimate the eventuality or what an exponential looks like for growth.
I think we finished on this question of what Sophie for example, everyone. Like, I think there's an implied question of what is the client in this case. Like, you can design the MCP tool, but like, what is the client? Is it like a generalized like ChatGPT that can like consume all kinds of information represents a user, or is it like a piece of the workflow, like delegated to some small task, or like is this like a Claude code like for engineers? Like, obviously there's a bunch of different use cases to your clients can go in all different directions, but are we throwing too much into one protocol? Like, is it hard to like actually find the structure we're looking for?
The cool thing about MCP is it doesn't specify what it is. It could be a voice agent. It could be the chat interface on your phone. It could be a help system that you've built that you're using it to extend through MCP just as an internal way to give tools.
Always a language model or not always a language model? Presumably, right?
Presumably, yeah, because the way it works is really through text. Yeah. I did read something kind of weird about some like voice MCP thing. I don't know, people are pushing it in weird different ways. There's a project called MCP UI that's about bringing interactive UI as a response from MCP and having that rendered inside the client in like a rich way, so it's interactive. It's pretty wacky, but it's really cool. It requires a significant amount of client investment and support on it, and there's a bunch of security stuff on it. But people are trying weird things and really trying to push it. And I think one of the reasons I got excited about it is I started going to like meetups in the Bay Area where people building MCP stuff, and I just saw people building weird shit. I don't know a better way to say it. It felt very much like the early mobile app development, where I was like, people are trying strange things and trying to shoehorn other experiences into it, and there was a lot of inspiration. So if you have an idea for another type of client, I think you should go build it, and put it on Twitter and join the hype.
One more question.
I was curious, if you guys had this Mux MCP offering, could a customer of yours go to their Slack and add like a new channel that would be this like Mux agent, and when they interact with it, it would know that I'm like Steve or whatever, which videos or what my permission levels would be, and I just wondered to what extent, and then who brings the LLM in that situation? Is that something you guys explore for a UI?
You could definitely build that. Have we explored that for a UI? I'd say as we build more like agent systems around this, not just MCP, I think it's a plausible one. How would authentication work there? If you wanted to know one particular Slack user permissions?
Yeah, that's a good question. You'd probably have to build a Slack bot that's just like your own app that then on the back end is using MCP and interfacing with stuff, or it's using the Mux API directly. Slack is one of the most well-poised products to interface with MCP, and it just like breaks my heart. I feel like a lot of the product and engineering leadership has left that company, and they really don't seem to be leaning in on the platform friendliness side. Given the momentum and power around MCP, I actually think there's an opportunity for like a disruptive chat product to emerge and replace Slack, because I think it is going to be so powerful. Right now, ChatGPT, like you have yours, I have mine. We don't have ours, like as a company, right? Like, right? Why isn't it collaborative or multiplayer? And this is the thing about product market fit with things, is like they can be missing all of this stuff, but if the core thing is good, it just goes to the moon. And I expect those, smart folks at OpenAI are spending late nights talking about this and building a lot of these things too.
Sort of web, the background agents are kind of getting closer to what you say.
Yeah,
So they can run parallel.
it can be in collaborative, run in the background.
Becomes hours. I like the
The code review agents, tying off of GitHub, existing collaborative surfaces that are there, Again, there's a ton of awesome stuff, just generally around agentic behavior that people are building. But I think MCP is this like pretty enormous unlock that will allow people to build generalized services. So there will likely be companies in the future where their only product that they give is an MCP endpoint. That's how they serve the world. There's no web page, there's no phone number you call. You just connect over MCP, and
That's my dream. I'm terrible from
that's your product. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I'm downloading it.
Yeah.
The last Hacker News article was ACT, Agentic Context Protocol.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
Yeah, there's interesting stuff that Stripe is building around payments through these agent systems.
I think we're at time. Feel free to stick around. There's food, and yeah. If
Thank
you
you
have more
for
questions,
Mux for
yeah.
hosting us here
Yeah.
too tonight. Thank you.
Thank you all.